The next part of the cardiovascular physical examination is auscultation, or listening to murmurs and heart sounds. Before proceeding with auscultation, the environment must be fully prepared. The environment should be neither too warm nor too cold. The patient should be fully exposed and feel psychologically and emotionally secure. And then we definitely need a stethoscope that has both a diaphragm and a bell, because some murmurs and heart sounds are better heard with the bell and some with the diaphragm. Also, we should listen to the heart murmurs while the patient is in different positions and with various maneuvers. To begin auscultation, we first need to identify the locations where we will listen. The first step is to find the Lewis angle. The Lewis angle is a bony prominence between the manubrium and the body of the sternum, which I can feel right under my hand now, and it is aligned with the second intercostal space. To its right and left, there are two areas: the right second intercostal space and the left second intercostal space. The right second intercostal space is called the aortic area, and the left second intercostal space is the pulmonic area. Then, in the left parasternal border area, there is a region where the sounds related to the tricuspid valve are heard. And finally, the apex area, which is located directly below the nipple and at the level of the fourth and fifth intercostal spaces along the midclavicular line, is where murmurs from the mitral valve are heard. To begin auscultation, we set our stethoscope to the diaphragm mode and check each of these areas one by one. Regarding the presence of abnormalities, we refer to the right and left second intercostal spaces as such. We call the base of the heart and the apex the apical area. To make sure we don't miss anything, we need to perform auscultation systematically. That means we first place the stethoscope on the right second intercostal space, then the left second intercostal space, then the LSB area, and then the apical area. By placing the stethoscope on the second intercostal space, the normal heart sounds S1 and S2 can be heard. Like this: lub dub, lub dub. Lub is the first sound, or S1. Dub is the second sound. The first sound, or S1, which is heard as lub, is louder at the apex area than at the base of the heart, and conversely, the second sound, or S2, that is dub, is heard better at the second intercostal space. Compared to the apex area, the S1 sound is caused by the closure of the mitral and tricuspid valves, and the S2 sound is caused by the closure of the pulmonary and aortic valves. How do we distinguish between these two? The S1 sound occurs at the beginning of systole, and the S2 sound occurs at the end of systole. Therefore, it is enough for us to place our hand on the carotid pulse. And then we proceed to auscultate. The sound we hear at the start of the carotid pulse is S1, and the sound we hear at the end of the carotid pulse is S2. The interval between 1 and 2 is systolic. The interval between 2 and 1 is diastole. Diastole, in the second stage, we ask the patient to breathe. That is, to perform the act of inspiration. During inspiration, as preload increases and venous return to the right side of the heart increases, the volume of blood entering the right ventricle increases. Therefore, it takes more time for the blood to be ejected from the right ventricle, and the pulmonary valve closes later. For this reason, the interval between P2 and A2 increases. We hear the second heart sound as a double sound. That is a splitting. So essentially, we have the first S1 beat. The second beat is doubled like this: loop do doop, or 1 2 1 2, and it disappears during expiration. This is called physiological splitting of S2. If you watched this video and found it helpful, please like it and share it with your friends. And if you don't want to miss the next videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. How do we distinguish the sounds that occur during the diastolic phase, like S4 and S3? For these sounds, it's enough for us to detect the carotid artery pulse while we're auscultating. The S3 sound is heard at the beginning of diastole, and S4 is heard at the end of diastole. We place the stethoscope on the chest and use our right hand to detect the carotid pulse. The sound that occurs with the beginning of the pulse is S1. The sound that occurs with the end of the carotid pulse is S2. And any other sound that occurs after these is the diastolic sound, which includes 3 and 4. 3, or the third heart sound, occurs immediately after 2. That is in this way: loop dope up, loop, loop up, loop, loop up. And the fourth sound occurs after 3. That is at the end of diastole, like this: loop, dope, up, loop, dope, up, loop, dope, up, The next point is that the third and fourth sounds are low-pitched sounds, so in order to hear them better, we need to change the diaphragm and use the bell of the stethoscope to listen to the sounds. Therefore, the third and fourth sounds are better heard with the bell of the stethoscope, and we should place it gently on the chest, because if we press it, it will again act like the diaphragm. Now, a question arises here. You place the stethoscope on the patient's chest, and you feel that the second heart sound is doubled. That is, you hear the second heart sound as a double sound. Here you are unsure whether this is a split S2 or an S3. What do you do to differentiate between these two? Exactly. If you hear that sound only with the bell of the stethoscope, it indicates that it is the third heart sound. Because as we said, S3 and S4 are low-pitched sounds. But if we hear it with the diaphragm, then the second sound is actually a split S2, and also the two components or peaks of the split S2 are much closer together, whereas S3 occurs with a slight delay. So now how do we approach a heart murmur? That is, we place the stethoscope on the patient's heart and detect a turbulence or murmur. Now how do we determine the cause of this turbulence and murmur? To do this, we need to go through several steps. The first step and the first question is whether we hear this heart murmur better at the base of the heart or at the apex. By the base of the heart, I mean the second intercostal space on the right and left sides. The second question and step is whether this murmur is systolic, diastolic, or continuous. To do this, we should place our right hand on the carotid artery pulse and the stethoscope on the patient's heart. If this murmur or bruit occurs simultaneously with the carotid artery pulse, it is systolic. If it does not coincide, it is diastolic. And if it is heard continuously, it is a continuous murmur. And based on these two factors, we divide the heart sounds into four groups. The first group are those murmurs that are best heard in the second intercostal space or the base of the heart and are also systolic. There are four differential diagnoses: AS, PS, HOCM, and coarctation of the aorta. How do we differentiate between these four? To differentiate aortic stenosis from pulmonary artery stenosis, it's enough to listen to the other areas as well. The murmur of pulmonary artery stenosis is only heard in the left second intercostal space, whereas the murmur caused by AS radiates to other parts of the heart as well. Therefore, you might also hear it at the apex, which is called the Galavardine sign. Or if we place our stethoscope on the carotid artery, the murmur from AS can also radiate to the neck. The second step to differentiate AS from PS is to ask the patient to take a breath. Right-sided heart murmurs increase with breathing and inspiration. Because the venous return increases, they become louder. So if the murmur gets louder with inspiration and breathing, it means it's PS. But if there is no change, it means it's aortic stenosis. Now, how do we differentiate the murmur caused by coarctation of the aorta from aortic stenosis? Coarctation is indeed heard at the anterior chest and the second intercostal space, but it also radiates to the back. So, you will also hear this murmur between the patient's shoulder blades and in the back area. In addition, a patient with coarctation of the aorta will have some other findings on physical examination. These patients usually have hypertension that is resistant to treatment, and the blood pressure in the lower limbs is less than in the upper limbs. That is, the blood pressure in the legs is lower than in the arms. How do we differentiate the murmur caused by PDA from aortic stenosis? In a patient with aortic stenosis, the murmur is preload dependent, but the murmur caused by PDA is size dependent. That is, any factor that causes the heart size to decrease will bring the heart walls closer together. The LVOT becomes narrower, and the murmur caused by PDA increases. For this reason, with two simple maneuvers, we can differentiate between them. We ask the patient to stand up. When the patient stands up, it leads to decreased venous return and the heart size becomes smaller. Therefore, since the preload decreases, the murmur of aortic stenosis diminishes. But because the heart becomes smaller, the murmur caused by HOCM increases. The next maneuver is squatting. It's like when the patient is sitting and straining. It's similar to the position used in a traditional Iranian toilet. When the patient squats, both afterload and preload increase. For this reason, since preload increases, the murmur caused by AS increases. And when afterload increases, the heart size becomes larger and the murmur caused by HOCM decreases. Because the size of the heart is increasing, so if we hear a systolic murmur at the base of the heart, there are four differential diagnoses: AS, PS, HOCM, and coarctation of the aorta. If you watched this video and found it helpful, please like it and share it with your friends. And if you don't want to miss future videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. The second group consists of murmurs that are heard in the second intercostal space but are diastolic. There are only two differential diagnoses, AI and PI, meaning aortic valve insufficiency and pulmonary valve insufficiency. How do we differentiate between these two? It's enough for the patient to take a breath. Since PI is a right-sided murmur, it increases with inhalation, but AI doesn't change. The next maneuver we perform is hand grip, which means we ask the patient to clench their fists. Please clench your fists and raise them up. When the hands are clenched, it leads to an increase in afterload. The aortic insufficiency murmur is afterload dependent. Therefore, it increases when the hands are clenched. Whereas PI is preload dependent and does not change with hand clenching. And finally, the next step to differentiate AI from PI is to change the patient's position. Murmurs caused by the aortic valve, especially aortic insufficiency, are intensified by sitting and leaning forward. In other words, the sitting and leaning forward position. I ask my colleague to please sit down and lean forward, and at that point we proceed to auscultate. If the murmur becomes louder, it indicates aortic insufficiency. The third group consists of murmurs that are best heard at the apex and are systolic. This group includes three murmurs: mitral regurgitation, tricuspid regurgitation, and VSD. Now, how do we differentiate these from each other? The murmur caused by MR is heard at the apex, while the murmurs from VSD and tricuspid regurgitation are heard louder at the LSB area. The next step is to ask the patient to breathe in, to perform inspiration, because the TR murmur, which is on the right side, increases, but the MR murmur does not change. What do we do to differentiate the MR murmur from the VSD murmur? We place our hand on the patient's chest because the pressure gradient in VSD is high, so it is accompanied by a thrill and is more intense. Therefore, if the murmur is very intense and accompanied by a thrill, it indicates VSD, and ultimately it depends on the patient's position. Murmurs caused by the mitral valve increase when lying on the left side. In other words, in the left lateral decubitus position. The fourth group consists of murmurs that firstly are heard better at the apex compared to the base of the heart, and secondly are diastolic. These murmurs have no more than two main differential diagnoses. Either the patient has TS or MS. First, we need to know that TS and MS murmurs, because they are low frequency and low pitch, they are better heard with the bell of the stethoscope. The murmur caused by MS is best heard at the apex, while the murmur from TS is better heard at the LSB, and like other mitral valve murmurs, it is better heard in the left lateral decubitus position. The next maneuver to differentiate TS from MS is inspiration. We ask the patient to take a breath. If the murmur intensifies, it means it's TS, but if there is no change, it's MS. So in summary, when we detect a murmur in a patient, we should approach it systematically. The first step is to determine whether it is better heard at the base of the heart or at the apex. 2. Determine whether it is systolic or diastolic. As we said, we place our finger on the carotid pulse and simultaneously detect the murmur, and then, based on these two factors, they are divided into 4 groups. If it is systolic and better heard at the base of the heart, there are 4 differential diagnoses: AS, PS, HOCM, and coarctation of the aorta. If it is diastolic and better heard at the base of the heart, there are only 2 differential diagnoses: AI and PI. If it is systolic and better heard at the apex, there are 3 differential diagnoses: MR, TR, and VSD. And if it is diastolic and better heard at the base of the heart, there are 2 differential diagnoses: TS and MS, which we differentiate from each other using the maneuvers we discussed.